Please welcome our next speaker, Lisa Crosbie, a technical evangelist. Today, Lisa will be presenting Getting Started with Canvas Apps. Please stick around after her session for a live Q&A.
Hello and welcome to DynamicsCon 2021. Very excited to be here today talking to you about Canvas apps. This is a session designed for complete beginners. If you haven't worked with this before or you've dabbled in it a little bit and you'd like to get to know what you can do with this technology, this is a great starting point for you because there's so much action going on with Power Apps. We're seeing so much excitement and growth in the community and people using this platform that I want to give you a nice, easy entry point. Anyone can get started with this. So my aim here is to help you do that. By way of introduction, my name is Lisa Crosbie. Please connect with me if you would like to. I'm on Twitter. You'll find me on LinkedIn as well. I've got more tutorials on YouTube if you'd like to take your learning even further. And I also do a podcast where we talk about what's the latest and greatest in the platform. During the session today, please pop questions in the chat. We'll be answering as we go, and we'll also be doing a live Q&A at the end. So make sure you pop your questions in there, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Really looking forward to hearing what your questions are around Power Apps. So to start off, I just want to talk about the fact that Power Apps is actually three things. And the one we're talking about today, which is Canvas Apps, is what people usually mean when they say Power Apps. But just for context, Power Apps is part of the Power Platform and allows you to create all kinds of business applications. So Canvas Apps, which we're looking at today, is called that because it's a blank canvas. And this is where you need to kind of get started with the learning that we're going to be taking you through, what kinds of things you can put on the blank canvas, the formulas that you can use, and how to go about learning those things. So I'm really going to be taking you through those skills and learning resources to go to the next step. But I want you to know there's more to Power Apps as well, which we're not covering today, but there are also model-driven apps, which is about starting with a data model and creating something that's a little bit more like a traditional CRM or customer service type system. So there's that whole part of Power Apps as well. And there's also Power Apps portals if you want to be surfacing data out to customers, for instance, to be able to log tickets for something or follow up on inquiries and things like that. So just park those ideas as other things to be aware of, that there's actually three types of Power Apps, and we're going to focus in today on Canvas Apps and how to get started with Canvas Apps and what Canvas Apps can do for you. So, principles of Canvas apps, as I said, called a Canvas app because you start with a blank canvas. And what that means is that you can create an app using drag and drop functionality. I've heard this talked about as like, imagine if Excel and PowerPoint had a baby. It's not exactly Excel and PowerPoint, but the idea is that those are the kinds of skills that you need. So PowerPoint in terms of layouts and things. Increasingly, if you come with experience in Excel formulas, you've got a much easier entry point here because we're using a formula language, which is called PowerFX inside Canvas Apps. And it's very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to how you write expressions in Excel. So we're not using a programming language here. It's all no code, but it's that kind of logical expressions and formulas and things that are very similar to what you would use in Excel. Now, if you don't have Excel as a starting point, if you've never done anything in Excel right now, don't panic. You can still learn this stuff. No one was born knowing this stuff, right? It's all a journey of learning. And I'm going to take you through at the end some resources and things and tips for where to go. But honestly, start with something you want to do and build the knowledge. Don't feel like you have to know all of this at once. It's a cumulative learning process as you need, and you grow and develop those skills as you go. The other important thing about Canvas apps to understand is that we are connecting to data and systems that we're already using. And I'll show you an example of connecting that up to a CRM system actually in Dynamics 365 as we go through the session today. And you can use it on any device. So when you build a Canvas app, you're not building an app for Android or iOS. You're actually building a Power Apps app, and then that can be used on a Power Apps player on any device. So it's platform agnostic. Other really important thing to understand before we get started here about Canvas apps and about Power Apps in general is that it is a business applications platform. Everybody who consumes your app, who uses your app, has to log in using that Microsoft sign-in feature on the left there. If you've got a use case where you're going, I'm going to build something for the App Store and put it on the App Store and everyone's going to download it. No, it's not that. You need to be doing something where every user is licensed, and that might be through just the Office 365 license or a Power Apps premium license, but everyone has to sign in. So just keep that in mind. It's a business applications platform, not a consumer applications platform. So the rest of the session now, I'm going to jump in and take you through a demo and actually show you how all of this works. There are 3 ways to create a Canvas app, and this is how I've structured the demo that I'm going to take you through. I'm going to take you through each of these in turn. So the first thing you can do is create an app from blank. The second is from existing data, and the third one is from a template. So let's get into this, and I will show you how it works. So everything starts from the Power Apps Maker Studio, which is what we've got here. You're going into make.powerapps.com, and you'll see here the first option that I'm going to show you, which is create a Canvas app from blank. You choose a tablet or a phone layout. There are features in there that allow you to create a responsive app, a bit beyond beginner level, but just so you know that that's possible. And I'm just going to start with a Hello World app here. This first app that we're going to build is a very, very simple thing. I'm going to use this as a way to orient you around this canvas and the studio and the different components and the things that you need to know. So let's have a look around at what we've got in here. We start with the canvas in the middle of the screen, and this is this blank canvas that gives Canvas Apps its name. And if you find that's too small or too large, you can zoom in, zoom out. So if you want to really kind of zoom in to do things, you've got pixel perfect design here, so you can actually work at close range if you need to. Down the left-hand side here, we have the kind of orientation of navigating around things. So we have the tree view there of the different screens. This one is the different components that you can add, and I'll be talking a bit more about that in a moment. This one allows you to put data, connect your data into your app. There's a media section, so if you want to bring in videos, photos, things like that, you can upload them in there and then put them in your app. I'll show you how to do that one a little bit later. And advanced tools, just FYI, that's what that icon does, but we're not going to cover that in a getting started session. So let's go back to the tree view. And as we build out our app, this is where all of the different components and things are going to sit. Fundamental principle of Canvas apps is this idea of each component, each thing in the app has a property. So what I'm looking at here is the screen has various properties, and each property has a formula that goes with it. So what we're seeing here at its most basic is screen 1 has a fill property, which is the color of the background, which is white. And you can also access some of those properties on the panel on the right-hand side there. There's a preview button. I'll show you that when we build our app. So you want to test the functionality of it, you need to go into preview mode. And a lot of the time what you're doing is working here with this insert menu. And all of the things on the menu here are different components that you can add into your app. So I've started here with the most basic thing. This is a label, which allows you to put text in, and I can do various things with this. Firstly, I'm going to give my components names. This is good practice even from beginner level. Learn how to do this, because the more you start to build out your app and put different things in there, you're referring back to these components with the formulas. You're going to make your life a whole lot easier if you've got names for them. Believe me, I've learned that one the hard way. Here we go, pixel perfect design. I can drag this thing around the screen. I can put it anywhere. I can resize it to be whatever I want. And then we're going to have a look at the properties that go with a label. So this label has a property called text, which is the text. And you'll see if I change that, the text on the label changes. I can also change in the property section on the side here lots of other different things. So you'll see I've got fonts I can play with, the font size, the font weight, all of those kinds of bits and pieces. Let's make this a bit bigger and give it a fancy font, bold. I can also play with the colors of the thing over here in the properties bar. So you'll find as you go through, not everything is in that properties panel, but those quick sort of formatting type things, this is the easiest way to do it. You can do it with a bunch of properties and formulas, but it's much easier just to kind of fiddle around with it here. This is nice and simple sort of formatting stuff that most people would be familiar with. We've got a fill property, so I'm just choosing a color. You can bring in your own custom colors with hex codes and so on in there, and text color. And there we go. There's my Hello World app. Now we're going to do something more impressive next, but just to kind of give you a sense of getting started here, I can play the app and see it working. I can start to bring in data sources and things, which is what we're going to do next. Just to give you a bit of an idea of the other properties here that go with the app. So there's the color. So where I change the color of the text and so on, this is where you can do that with those formulas. If you want to put in those RGBA colors, if you want to do all those things, it's exactly the same thing working between the formula bar and the properties section there, just wherever you find it easier. Also, good tip, please save it. Save it once. When you go in to save it, you can choose a different icon and things. You can actually bring in like a custom image and stuff here as well if you want to. Once you've saved it once, you're in the happy place of auto saves and version controls and things, but you do have to do that first save. So I highly recommend as soon as you've done even anything, just save it. I've seen so many people lose their work from not saving it. All right, let's see what this is. Bing. Not a very exciting app so far, but there we go. So we've oriented ourselves around the canvas and the different components and things. And so what I'm going to do next is show you some more complex stuff with formulas and things. And the way that I'm going to do that is to go back here, and we're going to go into the idea of starting from data. And the next two things I'm showing you, starting from data and starting from templates, are awesome ways to learn, because take an app that's been built and deconstruct it. So I'm working with the Common Data Service connector here. This is connecting me to my Dynamics 365 CRM, and I'm going to create an app where I can look at my account. So this is just, you could use this, a lot of people use this with SharePoint and things. You can connect to database systems. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create an app here that connects to all of my accounts in my CRM and that I can see that. And what this does in the space of, I don't know, this is maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, haven't timed it, it's really not very long. It creates, once you've selected your data table, it creates a 3-screen app. Look at that. It's a whole lot of stuff there on the left-hand side already, and we've got an app ready to go. So let's just take you through what we've got here. It's a 3-screen app. The first one is a browse screen, which is a list of records in that data table. The second one is a detail screen, which allows me to see detail of what's going on. And the third one is an edit screen. So if you start from data, you'll always get that same 3-screen app, which honestly might be all you want. And the way this works, I can browse, click through, and I can click on an edit button. So you see, I didn't do anything here other than say start from data, and it's created this app for me. This can be a really good starting point, and I can take this and edit it and work with it. There's a search functionality in here, and you'll see it's not quite working the way I want. I search for Microsoft, and Microsoft is there, but it's not there. So I'm going to go in and show you what that search functionality is doing and how we can make it work for us. So you get this standard app that spins up nice and easily, but what we're going to do is go in and unpick it a little bit and add some extra things to it. So as I said, really good starting point there. This is all in preview mode. You click on the cross to get back into edit mode, and now we can start editing our app. This thing that I'm highlighting here is a really core part of Canvas apps. It's called a gallery, and a gallery control allows you to bring in a data table. So you'll see there's my accounts. And if you're too scared by this formula, honestly, let's just kind of get rid of all of that and simplify it right down and just say, imagine I want to have a data table in here, a list of my accounts or whatever it is that I've connected it to. It can be that simple. The reason we have that formula in there is because that's the thing that's enabling the search and sort and filter. And I'll give you a little tip here. Every time I want to do a search and sort and filter function, I go into this app, I just copy paste that formula. No point reinventing the wheel. You can just go ahead and use that. And I think using the pre-built apps as a way of learning and leveraging those formulas into the apps that you want to use, go for it. Within the gallery, I can edit the kind of the size within things. So we can edit the whole gallery, and we can start to then get inside it and say, well, how do I want that to look? Do I want different sizes of things in here? Do I want, I've got an image that's coming across from my data table, has an image in it, so I can resize that. And you'll see as I make changes there, it changes the whole thing. So this gallery control is really about bringing in all of your data and then having a nice even layout of those things. The gallery is connected to that data source, that accounts table in Dynamics. I can choose different layouts here. So I'm working with the image, title, subtitle layout, but I could choose a predefined layout. I could also move things around within that, pixel perfect. Remember, you can change anything. All that stuff I showed you earlier with fonts and stuff, you could do here as well if you want to. So you can make this look exactly as you like. You can start from the pre-built templates and things, or you can do that. These are the data points that are in the gallery. So you'll see it started with, I've got like the image, the account name, the phone number, but the one in the middle there was account number, and I'm actually not using account number in my data set. So I've switched that across to say that it's the city, and then now I've got something that's more useful. So, it start from data it figures out what it thinks you want, but you can go in then and just adjust those things. But this is hopefully also giving you a bit of a sense of what a gallery can do. Connect to a data source, choose a layout, choose the fields or the data points or the columns that you want in there, depending on your data source. Don't forget to pop questions in the chat as we go. We will be getting to those at the end, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of things you want to know. Just showing you that you can actually move these pieces around as well on the screen. So if I didn't want it to be in exactly that layout and I wanted to do those things, and you can get down to kind of getting your arrow on the keyboard and moving things around a little bit to be precisely where you want them, or even using the X and Y coordinates on the position to get it exactly right. This is an icon in here. So there's a bunch of icons that you can add as a component into your Canvas app. You can just go add icon. And the icon here, you'll see is called chevron, right? That's a standard icon that's in the system. I'm just going to change that. And this is the first thing here you'll see. As I start to work in the formula bar, it prompts me with things. So I'm going to go icon dot. So anything you type in the formula bar with a full stop there will prompt you with other available options. So even if you don't know how to work some of these formulas, it's giving you bits and pieces in there. And you can see here, I'm just going through and kind of mucking around with colors and the size and the kind of the view of the icon and things in there. So the icon has all of these different properties, quite a bit more than what was going on with the screen that we saw in the first instance. The on select property is the one that happens when I select that arrow. What do I want it to do? If you want to add buttons and things to your apps as well, and icons that take, navigation actions and things, that idea of an on select property says what you can do with that. So you'll see here with this plus button, its on select property goes from here to say, go to the new form on that screen and navigate around. Now, before you freak out too much about formulas, you'll see I'm doing a very high-tech thing here of Googling Power Apps formulas, and I get straight to this reference immediately. This is, if you're the kind of person who likes an instruction manual, this is where it all is. This is a complete formula reference. Honestly, I can't digest it like this. I like to think of it as the same way you learn Excel, right? How do you learn a formula one day, and then you know that one, and then you need to do a certain thing and you Google it and find it there. So you might find yourself here, you might find yourself in the Power Apps community, but as I said, just think of it as cumulative learning. Don't look at this formula and go, well, I couldn't do that, because frankly, you don't need to know how to do that. You can construct it with the inbuilt help. You can refer to those formulas. There's plenty of tutorials and things out there that help you with learning those things. And once you've got a use case for something, you do tend to learn it. Just on the search, the way this works is that what we've got here is a text input box, which is a component that allows the user to type something in. And the way the search works is that it's actually done as a filter on that gallery. It's not actually a search command, it's actually sitting on the gallery. So what it's doing is saying, and if we deconstruct this a bit, we're searching that accounts table by whatever is put in text search box 1, which is that search box, and it's the text value of that. So this thing is starting to, you probably, if you've worked with Excel, you'll start to see this kind of thing play out. But you can see there, the reason my search didn't work before is because what it's searching for is account number, city, address 1 composite, and I wanted to search on the name. So I'm going to go in here and add name, and you'll see that I've got a little red spot there because I've made an error. So there is error checking built into Canvas apps as well. So as a beginner, as you're doing things, if you're not getting the formula quite right, you've got this contextual help in there that can really help you unpick things. It's telling me the column name doesn't exist. That's because I put too many inverted commas in there. But just to show you, and as I correct it, you'll see all my errors are cleared and gone away there. So really good inbuilt help to go. And I would suggest with formulas like this, just like build them piece by piece. I don't start by typing all this from scratch. I would start with accounts and then go, oh, there's a search functionality. And then embedded around that is a sort functionality. So again, this is very much how I learned Excel formulas, is you start with one thing, like those embedded if formulas and things, you start with one bit and then you kind of build around it and build around it and build around it with the brackets. So I would encourage you to take that approach if that's something that can work for you, rather than freaking out that you have to just learn it all at once. I'm actually now playing the app in the browser. You can actually hold down the Alt key to do that, or I actually prefer to kind of go in here and run it to search, and you'll see here now, hey, it works. I've changed my search parameters in that formula, and now it actually is doing that live search for me and finding those apps in there. The other thing to note here is wherever you leave your app in this preview, when you go back to edit it again, that's what you will see. So if I do this search for Microsoft and quit out of my preview there, now that's what I'm seeing in the canvas to build it. So if as you're building, you want to see the full thing again, go back into the preview mode and kind of reset it and then go back. So that's another tip for beginners. If people go, where's all my data gone? I can't see something. Whatever was last previewed is what you're going to end up with on the canvas. Let's have a look at some of the other components here. I've got a detail screen. This is using an icon as a back button, and that is basically a formula that says navigate back to the browse screen. The none is just like a screen transition, a bit like a PowerPoint kind of transition in there. And then this piece in the middle that we've got is called a form. So we looked at a gallery before. A gallery is like a list of records from your data table. What we've got in here is a form, which is where you can start to kind of view the details of what's going on in that record and edit it as well. Again, I want to edit the fields that are in here. So with the form, you need to kind of go through choosing your fields in here. I can say, well, maybe I do or don't want these things, or I want them in a different order. So I drag and drop up here. You're not actually dragging and dropping on the canvas here. You're doing it in the side. And I can change the various properties that are available here. So I can go and make some of these things, for instance, read only. You'll see there I've removed a field. I can add a new field. And so when I go in to do this, this is working directly with my data source, because right at the start, I connected to my data source. So as I'm going through, it's giving me all the options that are sitting within that account table inside my Dynamics 365 CRM to choose from. And I can put in there whatever I want it to be. I can also kind of format this a bit and make it look a bit nicer on the screen, but I've probably shown you enough formatting options for now. This one is taking us through to the edit screen, which is the place where you can do that. And you'll see this looks a bit different. This is a form as well, but this is an edit form. So we've got the idea here of a view form or an edit form. So our 3-screen app where we go browse, view, edit. This form is in a different mode that allows the user to change things. And it's actually the same one that's used to create a new record. So an edit form is used for creating or editing. And you'll see I can do the same thing there of moving those pieces around. All right, so now we've got a bit more going on. I want to add some extra things to my 3-screen app because, it doesn't have to be exactly as it is. First thing I'm going to do is choose a different theme here. Look at that, nice new colour scheme in one go. So themes, there's quite a few different themes there, good way to do that. If you want to create stuff for your own branding, you can do all of those kinds of things as well. But, the quick and easy out-of-the-box themes are a good way to get started with playing around with that. And then I'm going to add a new screen. So even starting from blank, I could add a new screen, and you'll see there's some different options in here. Some of these are quite clever, like pre-built for you, so you don't have to do a whole lot. Let's have a look at the calendar screen, for instance. This one is actually going to connect through to my Office 365 calendar that's connected with this. So we spin this up and I've got a calendar in there. I'm in Australia. It's showing me Australia holidays because that's one of the pieces on my calendar. And you'll see when I click on that, it's actually going to Office 365 Outlook to read my calendar. If I play the thing, I can see birthdays. I'm not actually really doing much with the birthdays calendar, but that's there. And then I can go into here and see what's going on. Because this is a demo system, I don't have any appointments and things, but if I saw my normal calendar, I'd see that. But you'll see there's, Labor Day on March the 8th in Victoria. So, all I've done there is create a screen and connect it up with Outlook, and it's picking up on my Outlook calendar. I could format that and play around with it and so on, but that's just ready to go. So there's a lot of pieces in here, increasingly so, that make it easy for you to grab pre-built components and work with them. Let's do another thing here with playing with a bit of media and bringing in an image. So let's say I want a nice front screen on my app now, and I can start with a blank screen. If I want to bring an image in, the first thing I need to do is go into that media section and upload it. So then it's in the app, and now I can add a component, which is an image component, and the property of my image component is the name of that image that I just uploaded. So there we go, books, and it appears. So I can drag and drop around the screen. I can resize this. I can play with different options and things there. And the other component I want to show you here is a button, because honestly, within an app, clicking buttons to submit things and do things all the time is really important. You'll see I can resize that. I can move it around. There are fancier properties here in the panel of kind of having, changing the rounded edge of the thing. You can have properties here that start to go into what color is it when I hover over it. I can enable or disable it based on different formulas and things. So just again, each time you add a component, look through that range of properties that's available to you, and it gives you a sense of what's possible to do. And then the formula that you put in always has to go with that property. So the text property is just the text in inverted commas, and the on select property, and these are sort of the two things you need to do with a button. You'll see also it's picked up the color of my theme. It's by default, it's picked up that lovely purple that I picked up in my theme. I'm going to navigate to the browse screen because I'm putting this one at the front of my app as a kind of get started screen. And you'll see it's giving me, again, that inbuilt help, navigate to the target, comma, transition. So it's telling me the syntax of what that formula needs to look like as I'm building it. I'm then going to just reorder things a little bit here because I want that to be at the top. Functionally creating the app again, just renaming things and putting them in the order. Can you see here how many different bits and pieces I've got going in the app and how confusing this would be if things weren't named in a way that I knew what was what? So you can start to flesh that out, which is why, learn this stuff from the start, give things separate, sensible names, often using the component names. So if it's a screen, call it something screen, or if it's a button, call it something button, and so on. And then you can see I can move that up or down in the tree view there so that it sits in a sensible order for me. All right, let's add another button here because I might want to go to that calendar that I just created as well, because at the moment I've added that calendar screen in there, but it's not connected anywhere in the app. So if I play the app, there's a screen there that's just, I can't get to it. So when you're adding screens and things, always remember to put in the navigation between the different screens. So this one is just same process again. I'm adding another button. I'm going to call that calendar, and you can probably guess by now on select, that's going to go to the calendar screen. I can change the color here as well. Might want to, give it a different thing in the theme colors, and let's link that up to the calendar screen. So now I've got an app, I've created a new home screen and brought in an image, added a couple of buttons, added some navigation in there, added that really cool calendar control that I didn't really have to do anything with. It just hooked up to my Office 365 Outlook there so that I can view my calendar. Let's give this a name because I didn't take my own advice and save it early, did I? We want to call this our account management app. I'll give it another nice kind of different background color here and an icon, and let's save that and then have a look at what we've done. Within here, in a real world scenario, you would be publishing and sharing. Again, more than I can get to in a beginner session, but this is how we're constructing it. But you'll see there's a share button, which is how you'd share it with your colleagues. All right, play, we get started, and goes through to my browse screen, and I can do all of those kinds of things. Now, I haven't given myself a back button to get back into anything there. So again, I'd need to kind of properly build out all the navigation and things to make that work properly, but hopefully that's enough to give you an idea of how you can do that. So we had an app there where we started with data, made a whole lot of things easier in terms of the data connection, and we added a bunch of extra components just to give you a sense here of the different things. Within the text function, you've got other things there like a pen input, so you can have a signature on glass. You can add date pickers, radio buttons. Timer is quite a good one. You can have like on your front screen like a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and it automatically opens the app for you. Media, we looked at the image, but you can also bring in a camera control. If you're running it on a mobile app, you can take a photo and use that in your app. Barcode scanners, you can bring videos and all sorts of things in there as well. Some basic charting functionality in there. Honestly, if you really want to be doing charting, bring Power BI tiles in there, so platform working together. You can also bring in Power Automate flows into here as well. There's all those icons that we're working with before with the arrows going to the right and so on. Custom components allows you to build your own component. That's more intermediate to advanced, but just know that that's a possibility if you explore this down the track. Some other more advanced things here. AI Builder allows you to bring artificial intelligence, pre-built capabilities, low-code capabilities into your app. And there's also amazing stuff with mixed reality that I haven't even had a chance to play with yet, but you can actually create a 3D mixed reality app with this technology. Another tip is sometimes, depending on the resolution of your screen, the gallery control kind of goes into this more options menu down the side. So if you've lost that, have a look over there. So the final thing I'm going to show you is creating an app from a template. So the 3 ways to create an app, we've started with create from blank, start from data, and now we're going to do create from a template. I've said this a couple of times already, but I'm a big fan of using templates as a way to learn. Frankly, these templates are incredibly rich. Like, they're just amazing. You can use these as you go. If you see something here that you want that's amazing, you can just use it as it is. But I also find that these things are a really good way to get in under the hood of a really advanced app and start to see these things. You could do what I just did as well with the create from data, which is to create something and edit it and change it to be what you want. When you use one of these, first thing it will ask you to do is to authenticate. So again, with Power Apps, the experience is always that you have to authenticate and do that login to start with. So even when you create an app and share it out with your users, this is why you have to be in that Microsoft 365 login experience, because that authenticates what's going on with all of those connections. Once you've done that once, it's done though. So this one has quite a lot of bits going on. And what we'll see here is that we've got an app ready to go, and look at how much is in there. It blows my mind a little bit. And that took me 2 minutes or something to just spin up. And you can see it's connected to, there's me in the app connected to my data set. But I could go in and change, the color schemes and things to match what I want. Hide screens, remove screens that I don't want, and so on. So do have a look at those template apps as a way of both learning and being able to leverage something very quickly to get started there. So back to the home screen. That's pretty much it in terms of showing you around the Canvas apps and what you can do there. What I want to do next is talk to you just in these last few minutes here about how to learn this stuff. And I've alluded to this a few times along the way, but keep learning and keep thinking of it as a learning journey. Honestly, nobody knows everything. And even if they do, tomorrow there'll be something new that comes out. So the language that's used inside Canvas apps is now called PowerFX. So if you're looking at Power Apps formulas or PowerFX, it's just a name for the same thing. You can create from blank, from data, or from a template, and those things are going to give you different learning experiences. From blank, go and have a look at the menus across the top of the different components. Add components into your app and have a look at that drop-down menu of properties and just start kind of playing with those combinations of properties and formulas. It really helps to have a use case of something that you want to do, that you've got in mind. And for me, I find that's a way to then go, I'm going to Google that thing or search that thing, and I'll find someone who's done it or a tutorial on it, and I'll learn that thing and build the learning. I would suggest using a data source that you're comfortable with when you first connect to data, if that's SharePoint or if that's a common data service or if it's something else. You can connect to data, but all of that stuff with where I was showing you galleries and fields and things, I know that data source really well because I'm in that CRM system every single day and I know what it's about. I know what's under the hood. So when you're connecting to a data source, work with a data source that you're familiar with. You'll find some of the formulas and the things you can do are going to vary a little bit by data source. So do that. Do use those templates as learning resources and take it as a learn as you need kind of philosophy rather than feeling like you have to digest that whole manual. Well, of course, if you are the kind of person who likes to digest the whole manual, then it's there and by all means go for it. And the other thing I want to really emphasize here just to finish up is around the Power Apps community. So you will find this at this short link, aka.ms/Power Apps community. I would encourage you to join there to see what's going on there. You'll see in yellow highlights at the time of doing this session, there's over 262,000 posts. It just gets bigger all the time. There are people here all the time who find it fun to help you and answer your questions. So this community has grown so much and there's so much going on there that pretty much if you search for something or you've got a problem with something, chances are someone else has had that problem or someone else has answered that question. Incredible resources here. And I would, kind of take this as a one-stop shop, both for questions and answers, and also an awesome place for where people are sharing blogs and videos and so on. So great resource to have. So that's it from me. Let's have a look now. We'll switch to the live Q&A and I'll answer any questions that are there. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that this has helped you on getting started with Canvas apps. Thanks everyone for joining. Lots of good comments in the chat that we're going to work through. I've now got my Legacy Power Apps t-shirt on to answer the questions. Hi Roshona. Roshona is going to help us with moderating and picking up some of those questions in the chat today.
Hey there everyone. Lisa, that was awesome. You know what? Thanks. I've done a bit of Power Apps. I've done like the app in a day, created some basic stuff, used templates, but now I want to try out some more. I like how you showed the template and the 3-app one because that's really useful. I find like that's a good place to start for beginners. Makes it a lot less intimidating than, just starting off with a blank screen. So heaps of great tips there. I'm keen to try this out myself now.
I'm definitely stealing. Lauren, thank you for saying lesson 1. What did she said? Lesson 1, cannibalize pre-built apps. I think I might use that.
Definitely, yeah. You got to live by that now.
And I quite often say with this stuff, it's like there's no points for originality in. I mean, there's points for originality in your design and use cases and ideas, absolutely. But if you need to do a basic sort function or a search function or use how to a formula or whatever, like honestly, a sort formula is a sort formula and you can do more or less with it, but go copy that thing. There's heaps of templates in there as well. So that 3-screen app that I was showing has some great basics in there. And honestly, I leaned on that very, very heavily when I was first learning. But the other apps have heaps of stuff in there as well. And if you see a formula you like, just, copy, paste and change the parameters. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn.
Yeah, those are good tips. I can see we have a lot of interaction in the chat as well. Thanks everyone for joining and for your questions. But Lisa, I'm keen to know, how did you get into all of this? Like, what was the first thing you built?
Yeah, so I actually come from that position of having been an Excel expert in a non-technical industry. So for those of you who are watching this, and I know there are a couple of people saying this in the comments who are complete beginners, honestly, this stuff is only about 3 years old. So firstly, nobody has been doing this for 20 years. But I used to be the person 5 years ago in a completely different industry doing nasty things with Excel to solve business problems. So that's actually my background, and I would learn all the formulas and do all of those things. So if you're coming from that kind of thing, that's a very good entry point. And my first one, when I started at Barhead, which is where I work now, about 3 years ago when Power Apps was brand new, my boss at the time, I was like new employee, keen to impress. And he said to me, we've got this use case for a customer. I think this could be a Power App. What do you reckon? Now, Power Apps was brand new at this point, and I sort of said, oh, I think so. Let me have a think about it. And I went away and did some reading and came back and went, yes, you're right. That's a Power App. And he went, all right, how long do you need to build it? Okay, I'd never done this before. So that thing of just having to jump in, if you've got a use case, honestly, it took me 3 days to build something that would now be about a 20-minute job, but gee, that was a good 3 days of learning. So I think that thing of having a use case, so whether it's something handed to you in your workplace or pick something that's fun for you. You know, one of the other ways I've been learning is creating a math kind of app with my daughter about testing her times tables and so on. And like, that's not a business use case at all, but that has got me into some other types of functions and things. So have an idea in mind and basically just start piecing it together and going for it. I think there's no real substitute for that.
Yeah, I feel like if you have a use case, then that's the best way to learn because you already know then what you want to achieve. You can then find your way to do it. Yeah, you mentioned your kids. Are they building Power Apps too? Have you got them into it?
Not quite. They're a bit more into the chatbots.
Yeah, I feel like chatbots
Yeah.
is a better place to start. Maybe this is next for them.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Do we have some questions from the chat?
Yes, let's see.
Maybe.
Oh, give a shout out to Chad as well. He had a good tip there. The hover property elevating
Yeah.
the app's appearance.
Yeah,
Good
so I
one.
think, yeah, thank you for that. That's so you'll see when I was doing that drop down of properties there, there's a lot of properties going on. And because this is a getting started session, I'm really focusing on showing you some of those main things. But once you get your head around those, absolutely have a look at what else is there, because things like hover, you know, as you kind of hover over something, it can change color and you can start to do some really beautiful things. And this is where that look and feel of your app and the performance of it and so on can be very sophisticated, even with no code. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that one, Chad. That's definitely a good one to look at and go that next level deeper once you're starting to get across some of those basics and experiment with what's there.
Yeah, for sure. Just looking at the questions we got, we had one earlier on. Can you create an app that filters the data based on the user accessing? Thinking about customer vendor portals, where the user only needs to see their specific record within the account and related tables.
Yeah, so essentially the core concept here is that Power Apps, and the technical language we use for this is that doesn't escalate privilege. So what that means is you have to connect to whatever data source it is, and every user who logs in also first time authenticates through to that data source that you're using. So whatever permissions they have or don't have to that data source, that's where your starting point is. So I'll use the CRM type example, which is what I was working with in the thing there where I had a list of accounts. I'm creating that app on a list of accounts and I'm authenticating it through to my Dynamics 365 CRM system. If I, as a user, firstly, if I don't have a license, I would be able to access the app, but I would see zero data in my app. If I had a license and I was able to see all of the accounts, I would see what I was showing you there, all of the accounts. If I logged in and my access, if there's security on that data at the data source, that means I can only see my own records, then that is all I would see, even if it said all records. So that's the fundamental principle of the thing, in that it applies the same security that's applied to that data from the data source. The other thing, though, is that in answer to what might be the actual question here, is that you can apply filters and things. So again, depending on the data source, you can have, if you're using Common Data Service or Microsoft Dataverse, which is native to the platform, it's very easy because you have views and you can just go, I want this particular app I want this particular view. So I can just switch that to be my accounts when I'm building the app. In the other data source, you can apply those filtering functions to be however the data source handles it, like owner is logged in user, those kinds of things. So that's the long way of saying yes, but hopefully there's some information in there that helps explain why.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Lisa. One of the other ones that we had is, when do you use a form with submit form versus various components and a patch?
Yeah, now I'm going to say most of the time you're going to want patch. So what I'm showing you in the app here is, and in that 3-screen app, uses the form. And the form is a really good way to get started. It's a nice basic way of submitting and entering data. But in terms of how the thing looks and functions, it is relatively limited. So if you're doing a nice simple use case, like that one that I was showing you there, where you want to edit and update accounts, and it's a single screen, you can fit everything on one screen. Forms are the easiest way to do that. But if you want different design, if you want to start to, I mean, you can play with limited design there, but you'll see even to reorder things, I kind of have to go into that form control and move things up and down. If you want to have more granular control over the look and feel of the screen, or if you're doing something where you're collecting data across different screens, for instance, I enter something here and then click next and I enter something else, it needs to kind of collect that data and submit it all at once. Then the patch function, so the person who's asked the question is obviously familiar with patch, but for our beginners watching, patch does the same thing of being able to kind of push data back to that data source to write something in there. So if you're doing something where you want more granular control over the design and look and feel of the thing, or you're working on a multi-screen app, then the patch function would be there. It's one of those things that's a bit more of an advanced function, but probably also in one of the most commonly used and recommended pieces. So the first time you're ready for an advanced function, go have a look at patch.
Thanks, Lisa. Just going through the chat here, I think this one's a good one. What's the biggest use you see for Power Apps? Trying to figure out a good example for customers.
Yeah.
What are some ideas or things you see people build?
So I think the thing with Canvas apps is that you are building on, generally speaking, building on an existing data source. So you can do things where you're creating collections of data in the app, but those tend to be sort of lighter weight use cases. So what we see is people wanting to create something that connects to an existing data source. So if you think of that as your starting point, so I'm going to use my CRM as an example there. One of the reasons is to provide a mobile experience to that data. One of the reasons is to be able to have a role-based user experience, a simplified user experience on that as well. Sometimes they're created in order to enable a business process. So often those kinds of mobile use cases to connect to something, or the users don't need or want to log into that data source, but they want to interact with it, and you're making that easier to go through. Honestly, though, in terms of use cases, I mean, there's everything from that very basic, I want to be able to view my opportunities and enter them, or view my accounts and enter them, through to very highly sophisticated apps. If you have a look at some of the templates that are in there as an example. So I didn't show it in the demo here, but not just those 3 screen apps, but if you go down further to templates, there are things in there around like onboarding and leave applications and all sorts of things. So generally, as soon as you start to think, is there a paper-based process I want to transform? Is there a way that I could make this more mobile? Is there a way that I could make this an easier role-based user experience? Those are your starting points for thinking about this.
Yep, and shout out to Matt, has another idea here too, saying he tracks expenses in Dynamics. Think you're making an expense reporting Canvas app when we're in a D365 environment.
Now,
it's a good idea,
also just while we're talking about expense tracking, there is a little bit off topic here, but within the AI Builder functionality, there is a receipt processing model as well. So if you want to up your capability on a Canvas app that can take a photo of a receipt and automatically process and put it through to Dynamics, go check that one out. It's in preview, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I like how it's so easy to just bring the AI Builder stuff into the Canvas app too. Like you do like a business card reader and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I pointed out there, and again, this is not beginner stuff, but I do like to kind of get people excited about the possibilities of where they can go, that idea of being able to bring in AI. So that's an example where you build a Canvas app that uses the camera control, takes a photo of a receipt, and connects up to another low-code piece. I've got some AI Builder stuff on my YouTube channel if you're interested in this, and I'm sure there are some sessions here at DynamicsCon about that as well, but it will actually kind of low-code thing that you can build with a wizard that will basically take that and push the data back. So again, if you're not a technical person, you can actually get into playing with AI, which honestly, that's pretty awesome.
It is good fun. I do love the AI Builder.
We've both had some fun with AI Builder, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other questions we had earlier was, is there a functional limit or best practice of how many search parameters you can add to your Canvas app?
Yeah, so in the documentation for those functions, it says a minimum of 2 parameters. It doesn't specify a maximum. The consideration around that is generally to do with what's called delegation with the data source. So by default, Power Apps will only have, it can only kind of handle 500 records and sort and things. If you're working with a data source like SharePoint, SQL, or Common Data Service, Microsoft Dataverse, I keep using the terminology here because it is actually called Microsoft Dataverse now, but the connector is still called Common Data Service behind the scenes, then those things have what's called delegable functions, which again, taking that down to a non-technical level, essentially means that the Canvas app is not having to do the processing work. If you do a sort or filter, it delegates that processing work back to the data source and it can perform better. So I know this is a bit of a weasel answer to the question, but it depends on your data source and it depends on the performance you need out of the app. If you're working with a data source that can't be delegated or working beyond the delegation limits of that data source and you start putting in heaps of parameters, you're asking it to work too hard and it might theoretically work, but your performance won't be what you expect it to be.
All right, thanks, Lisa. One here question relating to offline functionality. Do you know this? If you're designing a Canvas app for offline function, are you forced to use collections?
No, it can store the data in the app, so you can have that kind of on save, on load. So there is built-in functionality there with those formulas that allows you to do that and kind of effectively caches it in the app and then sends it through. So no, you can use that with your data source and basically use those on save on load functions. And I know haven't kind of had a chance to look at it properly yet, but there is some improved functionality coming with the offline capability.
All right, cool, nice. Some people wanting just the links to like your YouTube, LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You can put that in at the end. I reckon we'll still be on the chat here for a bit after we finish off. For anyone who wants to grab that stuff.
Yep.
And
if you've got ideas of tutorials, if there's specific things you want to see, I'm happy to take suggestions on demand.
Oh, nice.
I promise I'll do all of them in a week because you know I'm genuinely interested in helping beginners with this stuff. Like I think that idea of, like I said, because this is my background, I've come into this I come from a non-technical background, and we are seeing just year on year more and more people getting into this and the growth of that community. And I see so many awesome stories from people who've gotten into this, and it's, you know, from full on changed your career to just being better at your job and having a new skill set. And I think that's great. So I always love to hear from beginners about, you know, what's easy, what's hard, what you want to learn, because I think kind of enabling people who are non-technical to get on board with this and start learning, that gets me out of bed in the morning.
Great that you mentioned that. We had a question, more like so we have Phase, works with F&O but non-technical background. Wants to know which exam is the one you recommend to start off with.
Yes, exams. All right. So the one you want to get if you want to be a maker in this stuff is PL 100, which is the Power Platform App Maker. There is one below that, which is the fundamentals one, PL 900. So the difference between those two, those are the two you should look at. PL 900 is designed for not necessarily hands-on, but concepts. So if you are feeling like this is so brand new and you're not even really across the concepts of things, and I know someone else in the chat mentioned that they had done this one. Microsoft actually runs like free webinars and things that you can go along to get across it. It will take you through concepts of Power Platform. So that whole kind of platform fundamentals where you can talk about it, you know what the components are, you understand when you would use what. That's that fundamentals exam. If you're looking to get into, I am an app maker, it's not my full-time job, but I can do this and I want to learn that, then the PL 100 is the perfect one. That one's actually called App Maker. Just be aware that it is App Maker in the broadest sense of the word. At the start of this presentation, I mentioned that there are 3 types of Canvas apps. The Power Apps App Maker certification talks about apps very broadly. So you do actually need to be across not just Canvas apps, but model-driven apps and some of the other components in the platform as well, because it talks about that very holistic version of an app. So that's a really good certification. It is designed to be that first level maker certification, but certainly get some hands-on experience before you do that one, either through the Microsoft Learn materials or from some of the suggestions here.
Yeah, good tips. And thanks, Matt. He put the link to the exam in the chat for anyone keen
good on you.
on checking that out. Yeah, love it when people help us out like that.
Yeah, I know we've got a few people on the call here who are sort of, I came along to see how it presents for beginners. So thank you to those people for helping out with asking answering some questions and offering some extra tips. I love that. We all honestly, and I did say this at the end of the presentation, it's a community-based learning. When I built my first app, there was very little community around this. It's much more fun when everyone is sharing and learning together. And honestly, we're all teaching each other all the time. So thanks to the people in the chat who are helping out there.
I agree. We got a few minutes left here. Anything you want to wrap off with? Maybe some tips for our beginners on help or stuff to get started with?
Yeah, so look, I think just in terms of where to go from here, there are different resources available to you depending on how you like to learn. I'm a very just get in and start pressing buttons and see what happens person. If you're inclined to learn like that, then starting with those template apps is a really good way to go. If you prefer to go, no, I want to read some things and kind of go through a learning program, then Microsoft Learn, Roshana, if you want to put in the chat for me, it's aka.ms/learn. If you go there, that's actually learning resources, free learning resources for all of the Microsoft technologies, including Canvas apps, and that will also put you on the path to certifications. There is a program called App in a Day, which runs virtually, or you can just download the materials and work through that. And also built into the Power Apps Canvas apps, there is a Canvas apps learning app, which I think not many people know about is there. I've actually got a little video on my YouTube channel which kind of goes through all of these different things as well. So, or digest the formula reference, I'm not going to judge. Don't see many people doing it that way, but some people are like, I need to read the manual, and I get that. So lots of resources there. But honestly, I think for me, the best thing is pick a use case that you are interested in, and then start just kind of work your way through, build up those formulas piece by piece and build up those skills piece by piece. And then, things you didn't used to know.
Great tips. Really keen to see what everyone goes off and starts building after this. I think you've inspired quite a lot of people here today, Lisa.
All right, I think that's our time to wrap up. So thank you everyone for joining. I've put my contact details in the chat there. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards, and we'll sign off here. Thank you very much for joining the session, and have a great conference.
Bye.